Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meets the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. I am delighted to be joined today by Brandon Gidicsin on networking, fundraising, and the importance of giving. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies, to nonprofits, as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Brandon, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Bruce. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine, I assure you. Please take a minute or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. So my name is Brandon Gidicsin. Work for a company based in Stamford, Connecticut called the Junk Luggers. For those less acquainted, we are an eco-friendly junk and furniture removal service. With that being said, I'm in charge of their business development. So bringing in more accounts and more junk removal jobs for this particular location. I also want to mention right now is a very special time in my life because I'm fundraising very actively for a national nonprofit organization called LLS, or the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
I thank you for that. And that's actually going to be the focus and not junk luggers. Ask, is it true that one man's junk is another man's treasure?
It could be. It really could be, because the geography that we service, being that it's Westchester, which is a very wealthy part of New York State, along with Fairfield County here in Connecticut, we do come across, many nice neighborhoods and homes, and people are throwing away, brand new furniture, essentially, really nice antique items, arcade machines. So I would certainly say that, one man's trash could absolutely be another man's treasure, indeed.
And how do you split up the Picassos? The drivers get or
Say that again, Bruce, I'm sorry?
no, I was being facetious. How do you split up the Picassos? I wanted to know if the drivers got first dibs or
Oh, gotcha.
not important.
Yeah,
When the joke doesn't work, you just move on.
exactly.
Fundraising, very important topic. In a previous life, I was a fundraiser. How did you become involved with philanthropy?
Sure. So, I don't know. I suppose that I've always had this mindset that it's, important to help people in need. I was, I'm very, very fortunate to live here in the US, and, between New York and here in Connecticut, it's really, really nice places to live. I certainly know that there are many people around the world who don't have the same privileges that I do, and peace of mind, clean drinking water, a roof over their heads. So I said to myself, if there are a lot of people out there in need of help, the least I can do is try to help as best as I possibly can. So just watching TV and seeing these horrible situations, and having a few family members that were very, very charitable, it sort of planted a seed in my head that I should, help people.
Why leukemia and lymphoma?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. My father had passed away from Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of blood cancer. And it's one of the cancers that LLS, or the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, does a tremendous amount of research for. So it was reason enough for me to really get involved with that organization.
Condolences first on the passing of your father.
Thank you.
What are leukemia and lymphoma, and what connects them? Why are they paired together?
So I'm not a doctor first and foremost, so my description of it won't be that detailed, so to speak.
Nobody will care.
Basically, both of these diseases is when red blood cells quantify very rapidly. And it does something horrible within your body's ecosystem. And it starts to break your body down gradually over time. So that's just the very, very short version of it.
And the horrible thing, of course, is cancer.
Yes.
Now, I want to make sure we get to this because we've spoken previously, and once I had someone on who was discussing a charitable cause and a specific charity, and we forgot one little thing, which I don't want to forget in your case. You have an event coming up.
Yes, we have a few events coming up, but I won't be too verbose here. So the closest event is on May 13th at the Riviera Mansion in Massapequa, which is on Long Island. It'll be a networking event. There will be raffle prizes, an open bar, so that should entice, a good crowd, a buffet as well, and then music and games. So that's on May 13th. We have a virtual event on May 19th through this platform called Virtual United. So it's essentially like Zoom, but it's sort of like a virtual trade show where you can hop around from room to room, and we just ask that a person make a contribution of whatever they feel they would want to. And those are the only two that are really slated on the calendar for right now. The others still need to have the details ironed out. So
Understood. And both are for LLS.
correct.
Now, you mentioned something in your application which surprised me because I like to think, I know that I don't know everything, but I like to think that I know a lot about LinkedIn. And I honestly cannot remember ever seeing any fundraising done on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
But you wrote that LinkedIn was your major or one of your major avenues for fundraising.
Sure.
Talk to us about how you use LinkedIn for fundraising.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And LinkedIn isn't the only stream of ways to raise funds. You can obviously do events, which is another avenue I've taken as well. You can do podcasts. I even got my door panels wrapped, and it says my fundraising team, and then I know a gentleman who owns a SMS marketing company, so it has a text code. So literally when I'm driving, if people want to make a contribution, they would text that code, which is pretty cool. And I also have a QR code as well, so people could just scan it with their phone's camera. So I tried to be as innovative as possible. But with that being said, LinkedIn is a tremendous platform for networking on. So after I have a conversation with any person that I meet, I always add them on LinkedIn because that's where I'm the most active. And since I've been very consistent on that platform for about a year now, people can see my content more than other people per se, because I am consistent. I've built up a good sized network on there. So if I'm consistently putting out content about fundraising, and if you are on LinkedIn, there is a good chance, even if you're not a direct connection of mine, if you're a second degree connection, there's a really good chance that you'd be able to see it. And, you know, people have been very responsive. I've always led with the mindset of providing value outside of what you do. So I've provided a lot of people value by way of just, you know, helping them with LinkedIn, making them email introductions, um, you know, trying to help them with their daily struggles and their business and in life in general. And people appreciate that. So, once you step up to lead a fundraising team and you ask for a contribution, people are pretty receptive to hearing that.
I'm just thinking LinkedIn used to have this, I want to call it a gimmick. That wouldn't be fair. But you could ask a question and then your connections could answer it. And you, as the person asking the question, would, sorry, I jumped because I saw that someone is calling me on my phone and I forgot that I remembered to shut off the sound before we began. So you could ask a question on LinkedIn and the person asking the question could choose which answer was the best. And people thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Really?
Now they've got something that is a survey.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you've seen it. You can ask, give a number, 3, 4, I don't know the maximum number of opportunities or of alternatives that you can give you. Whatever the question is.
Sure.
Some are work related, some are not. I don't know, if you could ask, would you like to support the LLS Foundation? That probably would not be the question to ask, but I haven't seen anything, and this is what I was thinking of, because what you're describing is being an excellent networker on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that there might be an app within LinkedIn, as they have for surveying, that could be for charities the way Facebook has.
Yeah. So I know that on LinkedIn, you can do polls and things like that. So if
Yeah.
you pose a question,
Yeah.
you could pick up to 4 options essentially. But what's cool about fundraising with LLS is that you get your own personal fundraising link. So regardless of what platform I post it on, if I just posted the link, people could make a contribution like that directly. So it's pretty streamlined.
What does the money go for?
Sure. Money with LLS goes towards blood cancer research, testing, and treatment.
Now, as I told you, I was a fundraiser in a previous life for many years.
Nice.
And fundraising costs money. We always tried to keep, and we always succeeded in keeping our administrative costs maximum of 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, now obviously you're not an employee, you're not on the board, you may not know the answer, and it's easy enough to find out. And it's not this isn't a gotcha, but do you have any idea how much of the money raised, what percentage goes for research and other, let's call it, I don't want to call it patient, but client related services,
Sure.
meaning persons with the diseases, and how much for administrative costs?
I'm not certain on the figure exactly, but I know that a lion's share of the proceeds raised would go towards those quote unquote client
Yeah,
related services. But in terms of an exact number, I'm
yeah,
not certain on that one.
and that's fine. That's fine. I happen to know that LLS is an extremely has an extremely good reputation and is very well respected. So it's like I said, it wasn't a gotcha question. It was the opposite of a gotcha.
Gotcha.
One of the things with fundraising that people have great difficulty with is making the ask. Now, it's a lot easier to do it online because the person who is going to say no to you isn't going to say it to your face. They'll type something nice, or they'll block you and remove you as a connection. You don't have to deal with the face-to-face rejection.
Mhm.
Do you do in-person fundraising?
Yeah, so I guess
And so then my question is, how do you deal with rejection?
sure. So most of it does come through an email campaign where, I would send off a bunch of emails to my friends, colleagues, and my network in general, with my story for being involved with this organization along with my fundraising link. So even if a person says no, it's a bit easier to handle. I have made some phone calls to
Same thing.
to drum up donations,
Mhm.
and the biggest thing I get or that I have gotten is that they've contributed to other organizations, which
Mhm.
I really respect that answer greatly. But if I leave somebody a voicemail and they don't get back to me, especially because I'm not prospecting for a business, right? Like this is a nonprofit and I'm asking friends, family, and colleagues, people who I've actually had conversations with. Um, when when they don't get back to me, like that's something that I don't like. But you know, dealing with rejection in general, it's fine because I know that what I'm doing is a selfless act. So um, I take it in stride, really.
If it makes you feel any better, the first fundraising call I made, picked up the phone, I called, I asked to speak to a gentleman to ask him for a donation. And the lady who answered the phone told me they had just returned from the cemetery burying him.
Wow.
It was not a pleasant first experience. Um, so you can always use that as your bar. You're not
Yeah.
going to get any lower than that, believe me. And
Wow.
they actually were very nice people. But one thing you said, I give you credit for. I give you credit for a lot of things. But there are people who give to other charities. I was fundraising once for elder abuse. I had started an elder abuse program. And I had one of my, let's call them recipients, with me. And I was talking, there was a miscommunication. She didn't hear elder abuse, she heard something else. And I gave the pitch, and the woman said to me, "I'm sorry, Bruce, but I give to animal abuse causes." So, animal, elder, bad phone connection, whatever. And I said, "It's fine." I said, "Listen, animal abuse is a perfectly legitimate cause. Good for you. There's no there's no problem." The woman who I was with was very upset. said something like, what, animals are more important than people? And I stopped her and I said, excuse me, that's totally inappropriate. Everyone has the right to support whatever they want. I thanked the woman, apologized. The woman, the prospect, wanted to throw the volunteer I had with me out of the car, but I didn't. Needless to say, we never brought her along on another fundraiser. But a week later, the lady sent me a check for $500.
Wow.
This goes to show you, no doesn't necessarily mean no if they like you. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Junk Luggers also does philanthropy.
Oh yeah,
How
absolutely.
does that work?
Sure. So we started an initiative a few years after we started back in 2004 called the Remix Market, which is our creative reuse center adjacent to our office here in Stamford. Because first and foremost, our objective whenever we remove items is to bring them towards a nonprofit, a donation center like Habitat for Humanity, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Salvation Army, where they accept a lot of the furniture, clothing, and things like that. So we started this creative reuse center, and really the reason was because there were charities that weren't accepting all of the items that we were bringing back, not because they were old, outdated, and obsolete, but just because they were inundated with stuff to begin with. So we started this, and everything that we bring in there, the customer would receive a tax deductible receipt, and then a portion of the proceeds from the resale of those items goes towards a charity called Mikey's Way. And Mikey's Way is an organization where they buy toys for children in hospitals who are suffering from cancer. So in a way, it's almost like LLS. Not really, but it has that cancer connection. So
It is. Children get LLS?
yes.
I thought so. So there's a nice connection there. I'll ask you my final question.
Sure.
What haven't I asked you that you wish I had asked you?
That's a great question. I would say a good question that you could have asked me is that why is it important to be charitable?
Hey, why is it important to be charitable?
Well, thank you for
Just
the question.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bruce. So, I think it's important to be charitable first and foremost because we always have free time on our hands, whether we want to admit it or not, even if you're the busiest person ever. It makes you have a lot more respect for people if you are charitable. People like to do business with people who are charitable. At least that's from my perspective. And then I'm just a firm believer that, your service to others is the rent you pay for your room on earth. And it creates a lot more, it really helps people humble themselves if they aren't already humbled, and people will be far more inclined to be nicer towards one another if they are charitable, because they're doing a selfless act. So I think it's very important for people to be charity minded.
I like what you said. You repeat it about the rent you pay.
Yep. Yeah, sure. So I think it was Muhammad Ali that said it, but I'm not exactly certain. But it goes, your service to others is the rent you pay for your room on earth.
That is something I shall Google. Brandon, I want to thank you. Before I let you go, please tell our viewers how to get in touch?
Sure. Absolutely, Bruce. So, the best social media platforms are LinkedIn and Facebook. Just searching my name, Brandon Gidicsin. Alternatively, calling or texting my cell is fine. So the 516-459-2775 number there.
Well, Brandon, I thank you profusely, and I commend you sincerely for your philanthropic work.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the compliment, Bruce, and I really appreciated this conversation.
As do I. Well, haven't made that mistake in a while. I apologize. But these things do happen. It's the joy of live podcasting.
Yes.
So now I want to properly thank everyone for watching. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. As always, please stay focused on success.